Me again, Ethan Griggs with the Film Now and Forever website, filmnowandforever.webs.com, and the blog filmnowandforever.blogspot.com. What I'm going to talk about today is something that I feel very strongly about in the cinema, and something that has a really good chance of dying out in the cinema, but it is one thing that we must keep. And if anything, if we lose everything else, there's just one thing we got to keep, and that is emotions. Emotions are what make the movie. You know, I think I said this in the last video I did. I quoted Sam Fuller from Pierre Lafaux when he said that the cinema was a battlefield of emotions, and that is probably one of the truest statements ever uttered in the whole in reference to the cinema. It is probably the truest statement ever, and it is essential to your movie, because if a movie does not have emotions, it is essentially dead. If we don't feel anything from this movie, and that's what these blockbusters that come out now that fail to have that emotion, that key element where you can look into an actor's face and you can see everything they're thinking. They are expressing themselves more through non-speaking than with. I mean, an actor can say more with an expression than they can with words. You know, all the greats could do it. You know, Gregory Peck. You know, look at him in To Kill a Mockingbird. I mean, he did more with just a facial expression than he could with that monologue he did in that movie. De Niro could fuck your shit just by looking at you. He didn't have to say one word, and he could just blow your ass all over the screen. Your mind would be blown. Everything about you would just not know what the fuck happened. A Taxi Driver is a huge example of that. I mean, he would just, for the longest time in scenes, he would just glare at the people, you know, to kind of assess the situation, to how should he react to this. And, you know, that's acting. That's the meat and potatoes of acting, you know. You got, and it's everything, almost everything he did, you know, more, you know, serious work. But, you know, there was like, you know, and then like Brando was really good at that. You know, Harvey Keitel, Faye Dunaway. I mean, you look at her performance in Barfly, you know, she doesn't, you know, she's assessing a lot of the times in that movie, because she doesn't really speak a lot in that movie. You know, she doesn't kind of, you know, ramble on a lot. She just kind of goes through each scene, you know, talking when she needs to and stuff. But real brilliant actors can really tell you a lot just by the look on their face. And one actor in particular, in this day, like around in this time that I've seen, you know, a relative newcomer is Jennifer Lawrence. She is probably the best actress going today, and she has an amazing way of expressing her emotions through just her face, instead of actually talking. And, you know, with, you know, her being in the Hunger Games playing Katniss Everdeen, that's really essential, because with Katniss, she's got a lot of stuff going on. If you read the books, those books provide you with a lot of emotion. There's a lot of shit going on, and Jennifer Lawrence does a hell of a job in doing that. The only thing is, like, near the end of that movie was kind of where, and it's kind of like the old saying goes, there's no such thing as bad actresses, bad directors. Nothing, you know, intended against Gary Ross. I think he did a really good job with the movie. It's just that the ending for me just kind of felt like compressed. Like, after they got out of that arena, it just felt compressed, you know. And that was an essential, like, a lot of the shit after that was really essential and set up the second one. and defined the relationship between Katniss and Peeta and Gale, and it didn't convince me enough, that ending. But everything else in that movie, everything Jennifer Lawrence did, she really nailed it, you know, hit it out of the park. But with, you know, but that right there is just the exact example of why we need the emotion in cinema. The emotion in cinema is what keeps it alive, so you know that it is alive. And it's kind of like what Christopher Nolan did for Batman and just superhero films in general. You know, up until before Batman Begins, comic book movies were not, they were more of a spectacle. You know, you really didn't care for these characters that were in those movies. You know, they were just kind of, they were there. It was like playing action figures when you were a kid. You know, there was no emotion involved. These are very, like, two-dimensional people. I mean, look at Spider-Man. I mean, it was a great, you know, action movie type deal, but yeah, I didn't really feel anything for those characters. But you get into the Batman Begins, and, you know, even The Dark Knight, and you see Christopher Nolan gives you powerful emotions with the, you know, these actors. And of course you got, you know, somebody like Christian Bale. You know, I mean, that guy is pouring out with, you know, fucking raw emotion and power. And, you know, when you got all these other great actors, I mean, you got Gary Oldman and Liam Neeson, Michael Caine, Morgan Freeman, you know, Maggie Gyllenhaal, Heath Ledger. The list goes on and on. I mean, he's throwing these amazing actors into these with an amazing script, and they're just fucking nailing it. But that's what it is, and it's not just those. But I mean, the point I'm making with like the Hunger Games and the Batman movies is that those are blockbusters. Those are huge money-making blockbusters. And they work well because of the powerful emotion. Now, there's some things in the Hunger Games, that the movie, that particularly didn't work for me. You know, the action was a little incoherent, and it didn't, you know, that's other stuff. That has nothing to do with what I'm talking about today, though. But the emotion, they nailed the emotion, essentially, up until the very end. It just kind of felt like they just compressed. And that's a whole other story with studios and shit, because I got a feeling that it was kind of a studio thing. You know, get it down to a certain fucking time, you know. It's got to be a compressed time, you know. Well, shit. That's a bunch of crap. But anyways, getting off subject here, but the point is that without emotions, it's nothing. You don't want an emotionally dead movie. You know, the whole point of a movie is that you actually care about the individuals on the screen. If you don't give a shit about the what is the point in watching it? You know, yeah, pointless entertainment, but that only goes so far. When I go to the movies, I want to feel something. You know, whether it's laughter, or whether, you know, happiness, joy, depression, there's something. I want to feel something. If I want to feel shitty, I'll go see a movie where there's a lot of fucked up shit going on. If I want to feel happy, I'll go see a good comedy. But the point, I mean, even the 21 Jump Street, you know, these guys were so stupid, it was funny. But these, like, kind of tragic characters in a way, you know. Jonah Hill and Channing Tatum, they kind of had this way of making you give a shit about what they do. I mean, because these are guys that are just trying to succeed, like everybody else, you know. And but that's the whole point of that. I'm talking about fucking movies that have been out recently, blockbusters. I'm not talking about classics like Casablanca here or something like that, because we know that those are great. And what made those great? Emotions. You know, nobody could convey emotions like the greats. You know, the great Humphrey Bogart. You know, he was the fucking man. But anyways, that's, you know, compressed in a nutshell. That's just, I'm just saying, emotions is what we need to keep the cinema alive. Thank you.